Hello, everyone. Welcome to this very, very wacky Wednesday. Hope you're having a great day. I don't consider myself a dumb guy, but I did a stupid thing about 12 minutes ago. I said, I've got a few minutes before my live stream, and I went and had some sweet chili habanero beef. And there's spicy chicken downstairs as well. And I don't know what a dumb move before a live stream. It was one of those ones where you hit that pepper and it just goes woo. Well, it does to me. My wife, who's Mexican, eats that like it's candy. But for me, boy, can it have an effect. Thanks for being here, folks, and thanks for your patience. Let's get into it. You didn't come here to hear about my silly, immature mistakes. All right, folks, tons of wins right now with President Trump. Let's roll right into it. Let's first discuss real time what is going on right now on the world stage. President Trump had a plan all along, and we can totally see this plan right now that President Trump had, and he knew what was going to happen. He warned China, he warned everyone how to properly react, and they didn't listen to the man. He told them exactly what would be happening, and they still didn't see it. It's absolutely amazing what we have here. So let me back up a second. Do you remember on April 2nd, Retaliation Day, a little over a week ago now, Treasury Secretary Paxton told countries he had on Liberation Day, when the sweeping tariffs were announced, he had a 3-word warning. A 3-word warning. Does anyone remember what that 3-word warning was? Don't remember. Play along if you're on the replay. By the way, within a half an hour of this live stream ending, there will be timestamps below so you can zero in on the story you came for. Does anyone remember? He said, that's it. You got it. I'll wear my glasses. Someone's got it there. Toots No Name got it. Do not retaliate. Mark, you got it as well. Do not retaliate. Do not retaliate. That was the message, loud and clear. Look, it's going to be shocking. Let it settle in, but do not retaliate. A very, very, very easy message to digest. But they didn't do it. They didn't do it. Treasury Secretary Paxton tells countries not to retaliate after sweeping Liberation Day tariffs. That was even the headline at Fox News. So then what does China do? Boom, they come out with retaliatory tariffs. And Trump says China played it wrong. He says, my policies will never change. And then he warned them. He said, look, he says, do not retaliate. This is a high watermark. This is the high watermark. We're not going to go any higher than this. Do not retaliate. And China doesn't believe President Trump. And what they do, slap more retaliatory tariffs. And then President Trump goes to 84%, then 104%. And then today it went to 125%. The day's not even over yet. It may go higher. So where are we? We have China has pushed back again on U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff policy, hiking its levies on U.S. imports to more than 80%. Tariffs on U.S. goods entering China will rise to 84% from 34% starting tomorrow, according to a translation of the Office of Tariffs Commission of the State Council of China. The hike comes in response to the latest U.S. tariff increase on Chinese goods to more than 100% that began at midnight. And here's the crazy thing. Everyone was going in a panic. And what did President Trump address this? He addressed this first thing this morning. He truthed out, be cool. Everything is going to work out. The USA will be bigger and better than ever before. And then he said, this is a great time to buy DJT. This will be a great time to buy. Well, what did people start doing in the very beginning? They started selling, panic selling, panic selling, panic selling. President Trump said that before he did what he did today, where he paused the tariff hikes for 90 days for all the countries that did not retaliate against the United States and kept the baseline 10% tariff. Was this a game? It wasn't a freaking game. President Trump told us from the very beginning what he was going to do. President Trump said from the very beginning, he said, President Trump said, do not retaliate, be cool. This is the high watermark. This is as high as going to go. And then the smart countries, boom, we heard 75. First, we heard 50 countries, then 75 countries immediately wanted to negotiate, was blowing up the White House, people flying in like Benjamin Netanyahu, I think it was Korea and other countries came in and they said, no, we want to meet with Biden. We want to meet with the Trump administration. We want to play ball. We want to negotiate. Folks, it's like super simple in the negotiating game. You could have read President Trump's Art of the Deal, and it's not a secret. You come out, boom, you come out with a ridiculous first position. You don't start off here and then go here. You start off very high, which gives you leverage, and then you can move your way down. Very obvious. So President Trump played it, boom, up here, and then 10% baseline above, but then give you some wiggle room. And that's exactly, he told us he was going to do it. This is not some 4D chess move. Ooh, Trump did a 4D chess move. He said what he was going to do. Do not retaliate. This is the high water mark. Let's talk. And then those that did the little neat jerk reactions, they get it. And China didn't get it. Slapping 84% retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods in response to President Trump going tomorrow. Now, what did President Trump say? He said, do not panic. And then he said this, again, this is a great time to buy. Because what happened after President Trump announced the pause in the tariff hikes for 90 days? Oh, for everyone except for China. All the countries that didn't retaliate, China still gets it. It's now 125%. Most countries will be left with 10% tariffs on their exports to the United States, while China, which had retaliated against Trump's moves, will now face tariffs of 125%. And what happened? Stocks soared. Stocks soared. If you would have listened to President Trump, he clearly said what he was going to do. He's told everyone this morning, go ahead and buy. That now is a time to buy, is what President Trump said. Very, very clearly telling people, now is a time to buy. And they didn't do it, or some didn't do it. And then the markets rally. And people made some serious bucks today. Let's see, what was the jump here? If you would have just had index funds in the Dow, 6% today. S&P 500, 7.3% in a day. In a day. NASDAQ, almost 9%. That is a dramatic rebound from this week so far of steep losses for people that panic sold. And then check this out. Another thing that was done by the Treasury is they went out and did a 10-year Treasury note auction. Remarkably strong, one day, $39 billion. You don't need to know all the details. All you need to know is that everyone was saying, by everyone, I mean the negative Nancys and all the people in the Mockingbird, all the Muppets in the Mockingbird media press said, no, the countries are going to retaliate. They are not going to buy American, and they're going to kill our markets. They're going to take out their money from America. They don't want to invest here. Really? That is the fantasy craziness of even supposed money and business experts because they hate Trump so bad. Why would countries not want to make sure that they can still have a foothold in the strongest economy in the freaking world? It's ridiculous. And this is what happened. Remember, I just mentioned that $39 billion opening of 10-year Treasury bills? Do you want to know how much of that was bought by foreigners? 88% of the allocations went to foreign buyers. 88% of what they call indirect bidders. Foreign buyers scooped up 88%, far exceeding even what the Trump administration expected. and far exceeding historic norms. In other words, President Trump is winning, and the world knows that President Trump has everyone by the collective gonads, and they want to play ball except for China. Except for China. China. Senator Kennedy out there saying Trump has won. 40% of the world wants a deal. They know that they've been getting away with letting us let them rip us off. But President Trump is in, and those days are over. Welcome to the show, folks. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the day, the era of the 47th presidency of Donald John Trump, our duly elected and beloved president. If I didn't tell you yet today, which I haven't because this is my first live streamer report of the day, I love and appreciate every single one of you because you have going through your veins the same blood I have going through my veins, and the color of those veins are red, white, and azul. Welcome. I love and appreciate every single one of you. Right now, I'm going to give you a moment. Hit that like button. Did you hit that like button? All right, let's get into this. Don't forget to check out my other show, bcpextras.com and therealbcp.com. I'll have a new episode dropping later tonight over there. You're not going to want to miss it. There's stuff that they think we've forgotten and we haven't forgotten. And I'll be covering that tonight. bcpextras.com and therealbcp.com. Now, what's actually happening here, I've seen a few headlines referring to this, but pretty much the world is at this point under President Trump using, folks, this is peace and prosperity. This is President Trump forcing the world to cooperate into peace by effecting prosperity. This is bringing the New World Order into order without firing a single shot or dropping a single bomb. And this is war against China, economic war against China. Because what is President Trump doing right now? Right now, what are President Trump doing right now? They're talking to all these countries. They're going to do, the reason why we had this 90-day pause, President Trump said, it said, yes, some people, in another remark in an unrelated event he had today, he made remarks about how people were getting jittery or whatever. But he said, look, the people want to deal and negotiate. And as a gesture of good faith, we're going to keep the 10%. We're not going to get rid of that baseline tariffs, but we're going to give some 90 days to negotiate. So they know that they're going to go back into effect. President Trump is not going to flinch, but let's see if we can't work out a better deal that's more mutually beneficial. This is President Trump doing the art of the deal. And once again, nothing secret, no 4D chess here, because the guy freaking, President Trump, that is, projected and let us know what he was going to do. Now, here's the new world order. Besson says the U.S. is building allied trade bloc to isolate Beijing. We are building a new coalition around the world that is going to isolate and take the power away from China without firing a single shot. Vietnam came. I think Taiwan came immediately. So President Trump is going to be forming trade blocs in Asia where we're not going to need China. China is going to be, booyah, capped at the knee without firing a single shot. How do you not love this man, Donald John Trump, who is doing not just America and the world a solid by putting China in the corner without having to go into any sort of armed conflict? It's a beautiful thing, folks. And this is historic, and we're watching it play out before our eyes. And we're going to be able to tell our children, hey, we saw it happen. And it's going to be pretty painful, I think, but not as long or as bad as the naysayers would have you believe. As I covered previously, a lot of the most important things that we need are in our inventory, have been stockpiled. Oh, by the way, Apple, I thought this was a funny move. I read about it. It's a smart move. Some people are saying, oh, Apple is, they're stuff for China. I'm not shilling for Apple, but as a business, they made a very smart move. On Monday, they went and sent 5 planes to China that were unscheduled and picked up as much iPhone inventory that was already produced that wasn't slated for shipping for the next several months. They went and gathered all of them and had those planes back in the United States airspace before the new tariffs from China kicked in. So even the leftists that are all worried about that buy Apple products, Apple said, the prices aren't going up. We got enough inventory. You think Apple's the only one who did that? No. A lot of people saw this coming. A lot of smart businesses saw it coming, and they stockpiled. It's not going to be as painful as the left would have you believe. Senator Kennedy says Trump has won. 40% of the world wants a deal, probably more than that. But the big thing we see here is the coalition that President Trump is building a bloc that's going to isolate China, put them in timeout in the corner, and strengthen the rest of Asia and other allies and would-be economic allies without firing shot. Folks, what a beautiful, beautiful thing we are beholding. Now let's come back to what just happened in the House. The House getting it right. House GOP leaders moved to quash a vote on Trump's global tariffs. So the Democrats, I get confused with all the little procedural moves that they do in Congress. I'm not very adept of all the minutia and how they do all these little tricks and rules and how they need this many votes and how they can delay or they can postpone or they can increase the time they need to debate something so it comes out of committee and then goes for a general vote. But one of those procedural games just took place today at the House, and they were able to quash this move by the Democrats, where they needed just four, I believe, Republicans to side with them so they could try to sideline President Trump's tariff power. Republican leaders in the House are moving to short circuit an attempt to force a vote on President Donald Trump's new global tariffs, repeating a maneuver they used earlier this year to block attempts to overturn narrower levies targeting Canada. A measure approved on a party line vote by the Rules Committee Wednesday morning would allow Speaker Johnson to bottle up a Democratic resolution to cancel the national emergency Trump declared to underpin the sweeping new tariffs. Under the National Emergencies Act, disapproval measures can be fast-tracked for a floor vote after as few as 15 days. The Rules Committee move upends that timeline, giving GOP leaders the ability to keep it off the floor until at least September. So there we go. That was a move. The move to block the vote comes after Democrats forced a successful Senate vote to end Trump's emergency to impose tariffs on Canada. But that resolution has not yet been taken up by the House after Republicans voted last month to bottle it up. So I don't like these games, but the bottom line is even the rhinos are voting with President Trump on this one, not siding with the Democrats and saying, hey, even rhinos are on record saying, hey, look, let's give President Trump at least some time to see if this works. Okay, let's get into the courts, folks. We have a win here, and then we have a Trump judge screwing us over yet again. But here's breaking. The appeals court has cleared the way for President Trump to fire thousands of probationary workers. So we know that the Supreme Court made their ruling, but there were multiple cases going on with the firing of probationary workers. The last ruling was over 5 agencies. This one clears the way for President Trump to fire thousands of probationary workers over 18 agencies. A federal appeals court today cleared the way for President Trump to fire thousands of probationary workers across 18 agencies. The Virginia-based Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, in a 2-1 decision, granted the Trump administration a motion for a stay in the preliminary injunction pending appeal. The 3-judge panel included Allison Rushing, a Trump appointee, Harvey Wilkinson, a Reagan appointee, and DeAndrea Benjamin, a Biden appointee. And it probably come as no freaking surprise at all that the Biden person was the only one that dissented. The Reagan and the Trump appointee went and said, nope, he can fire these people across the 18 agencies. And they cited quote, the Supreme Court has stated a similar preliminary injunction issued by the United States District Court of California, and that was their reasoning. So in a separate case, they used the reasoning that the Supreme Court just gave on those other 5 agencies to expand it, this federal appeals court, on the 18 agencies. So this is good. This is 20,000 jobs that President Trump will be able to eliminate from the federal payroll. And I had to look. It's funny because everyone's going 18 agencies, 18 agencies. I'm like, what are the 18 agencies? I want to know what they are. And I was able to find this. CBS News said these are the 18 agencies: EPA, Department of Energy, Department of Commerce, Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Transportation, Education Department, Department of Housing and Urban Development, Interior Department, Labor, Department of Labor, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Small Business Administration, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, FDIC, U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, General Services Administration, Treasury Department, Department of Agriculture, Department of Veterans Affairs. Is it me, or does it seem like we have too many damn agencies at the federal level? Wasn't our Constitution supposed to be very limited government? But somehow that's not the case. That is not the case of what's going on. The federal government has continued to blow up. So fantastic news. That is a huge win for President Trump and for America and for the executive branch. We are watching the downsizing and the draining of the swamp, just as President Trump promised he would deliver, and the courts try to stop. But now the way has been cleared for him to fire 20,000 probationary workers. And once again, these are probationary workers. It's in their freaking name that their job is not guaranteed over those 18 agencies. Okay, but now we have this. Federal judges are blocking removals of alleged Venezuelan Tren de Aragua gang members in Alien Enemies Act case, even after the Supreme Court ruling. Also happening today, 2 federal judges on Wednesday blocked the removal of these gang members facing deportation under the Alien Enemies Act after the Supreme Court's ruling on the Kilmar Abrego Garcia case. U.S. District Judge for the Southern District of Texas, Fernando Rodriguez Jr., a Trump appointee, issued the temporary restraining order. Yep, President Trump doesn't always get it right. Look, I think one of the biggest things we can fault President Trump for, and I don't know if it's that we can fault him for it, but one of the biggest things that we have with President Trump is that he is great, but he doesn't always pick great people. And judges, of course, have to be impartial. It can't all be about politics. We get that. So Trump appointees aren't always going to rule in favor of Trump, because there's all these other legal things that perhaps they have to do as judges, supposed to be impartial. So I have no problem with this, but it's one of those things where it seems like when it comes down to the wire, especially what we saw at the end of 2020 and the Supreme Court, they don't always come through. They don't always come through for America and for President Trump. And President Trump, he seems to be doing, even though he is doing a lot better this second time around. He's got a better lay of the land, how the swamp works. He's got better people working in his administration on his behalf. But once again, you can't win and you can't get it right all the time. So Fernando Rodriguez Jr., a Trump appointee, issued the temporary restraining order through the 23rd, or until he issues a permanent order. And the reason why he did this is because, if you recall, the Supreme Court did it. They said when they allowed President Trump to do what he's doing and quash the other, they said it was brought to the wrong venue, that they had shopped the courts in DC and they needed to go to Texas. So that's what we're seeing here. The court the case went to Texas, and that is what this Texas judge has done. But we have another federal judge in New York also issued a similar restraining order after 2 Venezuelan nationals filed a lawsuit to challenge their removal over there. So President Trump has 2 federal judges that have issued temporary restraining orders on the removal of Venezuelan nationals under the Alien Enemies Act, because the Supreme Court didn't rule on it yet permanently. They just said that it was in the wrong venue and it had to go to its proper place. But here, folks, here's the good news. Here's the reality. President Trump, Department of Homeland Security, ICE, etc., the Alien Enemies Act is one way that they're able to remove Tren de Aragua people quickly, but there are other avenues by which, and other laws and rules and regulations by which the executive branch can remove Tren de Aragua violent criminals who are here illegally. So they're going to still be sending them out like they did that other third plane after Judge Boasberg tried to stop them. They just didn't do it under the Alien Enemies Act. So there we go. Once again, a back and forth with the courts, with the operatives, trying to put a wrench into the works. All right, I want to end with these last two follow-up stories. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has officially announced that he is running for the Senate seat there in Texas. As far as I can see, so far, Ted Cruz has not taken a stand on this. But Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton will be mounting a primary challenge to Senator John Cornyn. This is awesome. I hope President Trump backs Ken Paxton and we can get the rhinos out. And then here is a number. Here's a number that I want you to think about and to have in your mind as you, obviously, if you're watching this show, you're not going to fall for the ridiculous false reporting coming from the left and the Mockingbird media, trying to make Tren de Aragua human traffickers and smugglers and traffickers of minors as some sort of sympathetic, woe is me victims of President Trump. But here is what I've been saying. With President Trump, sanity has come back. It's not that President Trump and his administration are some far-right administration. It's just that they are enforcing laws that already exist. And we have an expert witness with this incredible number. Sanctuary cities across the United States have protected tens of thousands of criminal illegal aliens from federal immigration law. That is what an expert just told Congress today in a hearing. In a testimony to the House Judicial Subcommittee on Immigration, Integrity, Security, and Enforcement, National Immigration Center for Enforcement President R.J. Herman said that from just the last 2 years of the Biden administration, sanctuary cities shielded more than 25,000 criminal illegal aliens from being handed over to ICE as ICE requested them. 25,000 known criminals that should have been deported or at least handed over to ICE so they would no longer pose a threat of violence and crime in these neighborhoods that are full of other illegal aliens. 25,000, the number's probably greater than that, but at least 25,000 in sanctuary cities were not handed over to ICE. These are known criminals that ICE asked for and weren't handed over. So what President Trump is doing right now is not being authoritarian. He's not being crazy. He is just enforcing the laws that were already on the books. Between 2022 and October 2022 to through the end of 2024, actually into the beginning of 2025, let's say 2.5 years, majority of that time was under Biden. Biden's own ICE had asked for these people. And under Biden's ICE, they weren't turned over. All President Trump is doing is bringing sanity. Oh, and enforcement back to immigration and customs enforcement. All right, thanks for being here, folks. That gets us caught up on the major news so far today. Love and appreciate every single one of you. Mwah. Wish I'd give every single one of you a kiss on the cheek for my sisters out there and a hug. Okay, let me put it this way. A hug to everyone and a hug and a kiss on both cheeks because I am Latino, to all of my sisters out there. If you see me in person, like someone just did at the gym a few weeks ago, they're like, BCP, they got their hug. Kind of awkward, two sweaty guys hugging each other, but it is what it is. That's the kind of love we have here in this community. Hit the like button, hit the notification bell. I suspect I will have one more report for you much later tonight. Until then, ciao, goodbye, God bless.